Welcome into Straight Fire, a new face on the podcast if you're watching on YouTube, a new voice if you're listening online. Rudy Carpenter, a legend in Arizona State circles. Arizona State has a bye in the college football playoff. Rob G proposed to him, hey, we can get this guy on. I was like, oh, Rudy, of course. Come on, the guy's a legend, and Arizona State's having a moment. How are you, my man?
I'm doing good. It's been fun watching ASU this year.
Yeah, you guys are on quite a roll. Currently, you are with Endurance Sports Management, president of that firm. You guys represent a bunch of players and coaches. And obviously, there's a huge college football story we'll get to shortly on Belichick in North Carolina. But I want to start with ASU and this incredible run they've had. First of all, I mean, this team was picked, I believe, dead last in the conference in the preseason. They came out of nowhere. Tell me what kind of ride this has been like for your Sun Devils.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's been a crazy ride, right? This year, I think, like you said, picked last in the Big 12. I think most people thought they would win maybe 4 games this year. You know, everybody that asked me, I could only count about 3 wins when I was looking at that schedule. So with that being said, I mean, to me, look, I think Rhett Lashley at SMU has done an incredible job. Coach Signetti at Indiana has done an incredible job. You know, but I mean, you know. Spencer Danielson at Boise State has done a great job. But when I look around, I mean, based on the expectations, based on the roster, everything that goes into it, if you ask me, Kenny Dillingham, I think, is the national coach of the year. Without a doubt, he's the Big 12 coach of the year. But to me, he's done, you know, an incredible job with this team this year. And I think absolutely has a case for national coach of the year. I think
Yeah,
the offensive coordinator, Marcus Arroyo's done a great job. The defensive coordinator, Brian Ward's done a great job. Both were awarded with just, you know, brand new contract extensions. And I think it's a shame that Cam Scadaboo's not in New York for the Heisman Trophy presentation.
Yeah, I kind of feel like he got jobbed on that one. When we talk about Indiana, it's like, oh, well, they hit the portal hard. They're basically a transfer team, and that's how Indiana did it. Was there a secret to the success of Kenny and ASU this year? Because it wasn't as cut and dry as, hey, let's go grab 12 starters in the portal.
Yeah, but they did. I mean, they hit the portal hard. Cam Scadaboo's a portal guy. Sam
That's
Levitt's a portal guy. These guys are portal guys. But in my viewpoint, what I think is the big difference maker is just Kenny Dillingham and his personality. I don't know, you know, if you guys have paid attention to his press conferences or, you know, what he's done in the media, but couple things. Recently, he was on Barstool Sports with Big Cat, and they were talking about the ending to the BYU game, in which, you know, they could have handed the ball off, scored a touchdown on the 2 yard line, game's over. Instead, they played this milk the clock game where ultimately they ended up losing 50 yards, trying to throw the ball as a throwaway and have the game end. That didn't work. It gave BYU the ball at midfield to throw a
I
Hail Mary
remember
that was
that.
caught. Most coaches would have, you know, played some weird ego game where they would have, you know, tried to deflect. Kenny was very honest. Look, it was a terrible coaching job. If I was smart, I would have just turned around, handed the ball off to Cam Scadaboo, would have scored. The game would have been over. Totally my fault. On top of things like when you look at how Kenny handles his players in the transfer portal, I deal with so many players. When these players enter the transfer portal, these coaches whine and cry and complain and talk about how these kids aren't loyal, and they just go off on these kids. Whenever players enter the transfer portal that play for Kenny Dillingham, he does everything for them. Number one, he brings them into the office to communicate. Number two, he tells them you can enter the portal. And if you do, I will do everything to help you go to a better
Oh,
situation. And I still want you to be a part of this team while we make this playoff run. And so I think Kenny has done a great job with the players saying, hey, listen, I'm here as a coach and I want to make as much money as possible. And I moved around to different coaching spots until I found the best fit.
mm,
I don't want to be, you know, a hypocrite. So if you guys want to leave, I want to help.
yeah.
I know you guys want to get paid. I want to help. And I think that that's who he is naturally. And so because he's naturally like that, it's authentic. And I think that
Mm.
message speaks well to the players, and the players are able to buy into him and to go play for him. instead of just sitting back saying this guy's a fraud.
Now, let me ask this.
Which by the way, most college coaches are.
They are, yeah, yeah. I'm not gonna try to defend the coaches. A lot of them are. Let me ask you about this whole like you entering the portal during bowl season. I think it's the Duke quarterback Malik Murphy. This guy had like a record-setting season for Duke, and he's like, "Okay, I'm gonna enter the portal. I'm not playing in the Gator Bowl game." And Lane Kiffin sounds off on it because Ole Miss is playing Duke. He's like, "This is terrible." I'm just curious. What are your thoughts on that? You referenced Dillingham and guys entering the portal. Like they're going to the playoff. I can't imagine a lot of guys are going to be entering the portal from ASU. But if you're in an exhibition game that's just a bowl, yeah, sure. I got no problem with it. Where are you on that?
I mean, it's tough because, like, to me, it's a business now.
Yeah.
And so these guys have to strike when it's hot. They have to be able to maximize their opportunity to get paid.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Personally, I don't understand why, if you're Malik Murphy, you sat on the bench at Texas, you now found a home at Duke where you're the starter, you want to play in the NFL. Why not go chase the big bag in the NFL instead of the peanuts in NIL and college football, where now he's got to find a place to go play? Is he guaranteed a starting job? I don't know. I mean, so I get it. I'm in a weird spot. I want all of these guys to get paid. I want all these guys to make as much money as possible. If you don't want to play in the bowl game, somebody else will step up and play, whatever. But at the same time, to me, it's like, hey, you made a commitment, at least for this year, to this team. You made a commitment for this season. So it's like, if you want to enter the portal, enter the portal. But why stop playing? Finish the bowl game, finish the playoffs. I don't understand why. I'm seeing guys that are going to be fifth, sixth, seventh round picks, maybe even undrafted, who are like, I'm declaring for the draft and not going to play in the bowl game.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, bro, you're going to be lucky to make a team next year.
Right.
You might as well get as much football in as possible.
Yeah, I'm looking at Murphy, and again, it's just one guy. So he redshirted. He only, I guess, started 2 games at Texas, and now he starts at Duke. He's only 20 years old. But you're right. This idea that he's going to be at his third school in 3 years, does that look good to NFL people? I don't know if they. Do you think they care? I don't. You talk to NFL people all the time. You're dealing with them, but like, I don't know, Murphy. I would much rather, if I'm drafting in the NFL, I would much rather take a 23-year-old quarterback than like a 21-year-old. Wouldn't you?
Well, I think most guys will see it the other way around because they want youth. The NFL draft is about beauty pageant. The NFL draft is about ceiling for potential.
Mm-hmm.
It's very rarely about, how good are you today? And I mean, just think about it. Sam Darnold's been in the NFL for like 15 years already, is what it feels like.
Yeah.
He's literally only like 26 years old, or just turned 27. I mean, Daniel Jones is older than Sam Darnold, I think. So, it's weird. As far as how NFL teams look at it, I think before NIL, teams didn't like guys that transferred. They looked at it differently. I think they looked at it like, hey, if you're having to transfer, why? What's wrong with you? Right? There's got to be an issue with you. Now that NIL is in place, I think all these NFL teams now just know that every single offseason in college football is free agency. I mean, if you look at NFL players right now, if guys could enter free agency every single year, they probably would.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
that's what college football is now. You can have free agency every single year. So I think NFL teams now look at it as like, hey, these are guys just chasing a bag. These are guys just trying to get paid.
Mm-hmm.
That is what it is. Now, will NFL teams look at it and say, maybe this guy's high maintenance? Yeah. Will they look at it and say, hey, maybe the only thing this guy cares about is his money? Yeah. Does he love football? I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
I still think at the end of the day, they're going to look at it and say, if you're a quarterback, what's your accuracy like? What's your timing like? What's your anticipation like? Can you make all the throws? How tall are you? How fast are you? How big's your hands? And all of those things are still going to matter much more than what you did in free agency in college.
Yeah, the measurables matter. I am just curious, when you look at some of these guys bouncing around, hitting the portal. I mean, let's be real, Rudy. Like, it's tough to make the NFL, okay? All these guys transferring, they're doing it thinking, oh, I'm going to get one step closer to the NFL. The reality is they should probably be thinking about like life after football. Would you say that's more realistic or no?
Yeah, it is. But like, I know kids where maybe it's not even like that. I mean, I know a kid's a quarterback at Ohio State, and I mean, he was a massive recruit going there. He didn't win the job. They brought the kid in from Kansas State this year.
Oh,
They still paid this kid a bunch of money in NIL. They paid him a bunch of money to play in the bowl game last year, even though he got hurt 3 plays in. And they essentially came to him and they were like, "Hey, we can't guarantee you anything next year. So if you want to go do something, go do something." I mean, they
that's right.
almost kind of gave him no choice but
Yeah.
to enter the portal. I think what's going on now is we're getting into a situation with the big schools, at least, where there's an expectation that every player is getting paid. And so this is the way that these coaches, it's almost like these coaches want the scholarships back. So they go to the kid and it's like, "Hey, look, we're not paying you this year.
Yeah.
So if you want to bounce, we want your scholarship back." But that kid can now enter the portal and now he can go negotiate with 10 other teams where not only is he going to get a chance to be the starter, but he's also going to get paid.
Have any kids come to you for advice and been like, "Hey, man, listen, I'm a backup left tackle. I'm probably not going to see the field this season. I could go start. I would have to step down in class and go to. I'm just picking a school out of my Tulane, and they want me to start there, and they're offering me $100,000, but I really love it here at Georgia. Should I leave for Tulane? Like, what do I do? Have you had people coming to ask you? And I'm just hypothetical situation on some level, it's not the worst thing in the world to be a backup as opposed to going and starting somewhere else just to start, right?
Yeah, literally since we've been on this phone call, I've gotten a couple text messages from guys you're talking about. I mean, yeah, it's never ending. I mean, the number of guys I talk to on a daily basis is crazy about this type of stuff. But I would disagree.
Oh,
Every single player is gonna, if they're a backup at Georgia and they can go to Tulane for a couple 100,000 and be a starter, they're gone.
wow, really?
Oh
SEC
yeah.
football every weekend versus Tulane? I mean, again, maybe I'm being short sighted, but $100,000, for 1 year, like that's obviously huge for a college kid. But okay, is the education at Georgia better? I don't know that it is. Are you setting yourself up in a major, or are you just hopscotching to chase some money when you're young? These guys aren't investing it, are they? I mean, aren't they just buying cars and being young kids? I would have done that.
Well, yeah, sure, but you have to also understand. I mean, I have talked to very few kids who truly care about the education. I mean, that's just like a, a non sequitur. They don't even care about the education. I mean,
Wow.
it's like, yeah, I mean, what are they going to study at their school that's worth anything anyways? I mean, that's just how they feel, right? Like what?
What do you respond to that? Like, hey, what are you going to be doing at 30 years old, buddy?
Well, I mean, yeah, of course, but I mean, at the end of the day, just, I mean, look, we all feel how we feel, but I mean, in today's world, I just don't know, what are you going to be able to get job wise with a communications degree? I
That's
mean,
fair.
what are
No,
you
that's
going to
fair.
be able to get job wise with African American studies degree? I mean, I mean, that's what these guys major in. So like, I don't really know, but what I will say is that, I mean, I've dealt with so many guys. I mean, uh, there's an offensive line at the University of Utah right now that, you know, made almost 800,000 this year, and the university's paying him almost 600 this upcoming year, but he could have left for Michigan, Alabama, Georgia, and got way more money. So to me, it's like you're talking in $100,000 range.
Whoa,
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah. For a
600,000 is a
kid
little different, Rudy.
for a kid for a kid to, for a Fresno State kid. I mean, I guess that's the real question: is the money that we're talking with power. I guess you call it Power Four now: the
Mm,
ACC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, the SEC. The
okay.
money that you're talking about in those conferences compared to the Mountain West, the Group of Five schools, that's
Mm,
totally different.
interesting.
Totally different. But for those big schools, the Ohio States, I mean, look, if you're a starter if you're a starting quarterback for a Power Four school, a big Power Four school, I mean, you're at least going to get over 300, 400 grand.
Wow. And regardless of talent level or where you guys are in the standings, that's like
If
the
you're going to be the
baseline.
starter, if you're going to be the starter, if you're, well, here's a good situation. If you're the backup quarterback at Ohio State this year
Okay.
and you enter the portal and you're now talking to Iowa, Wisconsin, these types of schools,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, yeah, you're talking easily three, 400,000
Wow.
at the least.
That's insane. So I'm still stunned. A Utah now is this Utah guy? You don't have to give his name. Is he a NFL prospect? 600,000 seems a little rich for an offensive lineman. I'm assuming he's a mountain of a left tackle.
I mean, he's a great player. Yeah, he's an
Okay.
NFL prospect without a doubt. I mean, this last year he made 500,000. I mean,
Wow. Well,
you know,
now that's different than 100,000 or $75,000. You get that money. That's if you invest it and do it right, you're going to be in good shape going forward. Let me spin this forward to the North Carolina Belichick situation, which is popping off right now. A lot of people, his former players, are saying that ain't going to work in college. But the Dion model, coupled with what you've mentioned at Indiana, ASU, SMU, you hit the portal and you could turn things around real quick. Now you add Bill Belichick's name to the team that's going into the portal, and it's like, oh, that's jet fuel to what North Carolina can do. I don't know their NIL situation. I've heard it's not amazing, but I wonder if that would quickly turn when Bill Belichick is the one soliciting donations from the big money donors. Just your thoughts on how the Belichick UNC thing will pan out.
I mean, who knows? I've heard so many. I don't mean to laugh at Bill Belichick because he's an incredible NFL coach. He's won a bunch of Super Bowls,
Yeah.
probably widely regarded as the best coach of all time. But like whenever I hear people in the NFL say, "Oh, I could go coach in college. It's so easy. I'm going to turn it into an NFL factory." If every player wants to play in the NFL, right? Every high school kid, every
Mhm.
college kid wants to play in the NFL. So we're going to turn this program into an NFL factory that just puts out NFL guys after NFL guys. Yeah, like every coach on planet Earth has literally thought about that, and very few guys are able to do it.
Right. Yeah.
And I think what Bill Belichick learned in the NFL is that if you don't have great ownership and if you don't have a great front office, no matter how good of a coach you are, it's very difficult to win in the NFL. Bill Belichick learned that. Nick Saban learned that.
Mm-hmm.
I think at North Carolina, all of Bill Belichick's theories about football are going to get tested, all of them,
Mm.
because now it's a lot different. He has to recruit, he has to deal with the transfer portal. When he talks all the crazy stuff that he talks to these kids, these guys aren't under 4-year contracts. They can tell him to pound sand and get in the transfer portal the next day. They don't have to be treated like Bill Belichick treated Tom Brady, or other guys. They can just leave.
That's fair.
Um, he he doesn't have the organization anymore of the ownership and the front office. He's going to have street agents in these kids' ears, fan bases, collectives,
Mm-hmm.
people talking to the president of the school and the athletic. There's just a lot more that I think that Bill Belichick's going to have to deal with than what it was when he was coaching in the NFL. So, do I have crazy respect for Bill Belichick? Yeah. Do I think he's an amazing coach? Yeah. But do I think college football is a different animal? I do. And when you're North Carolina and you're trying to compete against the deep, deep, deep pockets of LSU and Alabama and Ohio State and some of these places, it's ridiculously hard.
That's a great point. I do want to ask. It sounds like Belichick went to North Carolina with this organizational Bible and basically said, "Hey, here's how I'm going to run the show. I need the keys to the kingdom. I want to hire my staff. I want to hire a GM." And North Carolina, I don't want to say they've been irrelevant, Rudy. That's a little harsh, but they have not been a major factor in college football. This is their chance. I mean, again, if I'm North Carolina's chancellor, I'm looking at the president being like, guys, let's just hand this thing over to Belichick for 5 years and see how it goes. Like we don't, I'm not a football guy, as a chancellor would probably say. Belichick knows a lot. I would say I kind of sort of trust him. Now, your question about recruiting, well, Deion Sanders apparently has not made one home visit yet. And he's talking a lot. He ran off a lot of kids from Colorado. A lot of people bet against them this year. And they were kind of a surprising team. I don't know how closely you followed the Colorado, but they were pretty good. They were kind of sniffing the playoff there a little bit in late November. But is there a model that Deion and Belichick?
Look at what Deion's embraced. Deion has embraced NIL. Deion has embraced social media.
Mm-hmm.
You think Bill Belichick is going to do any of that stuff?
That's a good point on social. Yeah.
That Deion does. I mean, I think Bill's going to be the opposite. He's going to get pissed off when these kids are on social media and on Instagram and Twitter and they're doing all of that. I mean, it's not this is not the NFL. And I mean, if you're a college kid, there's a couple ways to make money. If you're an incredible player and you're at a big time school, you can ask for good money and you'll get paid right now. But the other way to make money, like as NIL agents, and you're trying to go shop the kid that you're working with to different companies and different brands and apparel companies, the only way your kid is going to get decent deals is to have a large social media following. So the only way these kids are going to get large social media following is to be on there all the time, like Travis Hunter is. Deion embraces that. Bill Belichick, he can't stand that.
Well, I mean, I'm hopeful. Listen, I, as a Jets fan, I dislike the Patriots greatly. I like to believe you could teach an old dog new tricks. And I mean, again, Belichick's dating like what, a 25-year-old? You wonder if he's kind of turning hey man, I'm old. This is my last shot. Why not? Do you think that could be at play here?
Look, Bill Belichick's a smart dude. I mean, you don't get to where he is because you're not smart. And so I think he's smart enough to know that you either adapt or you die. And I'm interested to see how it goes. I mean, I really am. I mean, I think there could be a lot of kids out there that say, hey, the NFL is much more important to me than NIL. So I want to go play with that guy and I want him to develop me and I want to then go play in the NFL. You could see a bunch of guys do that. But unfortunately, I think in today's world, if you don't completely embrace NIL, it's going to be hard for you with these kids. Every kid I talk to, which is a ton, it's the very first, you ask them, hey, where do you want to go to school? I want to go to Wisconsin. What city is it in? Don't know. Who's the head coach? Don't know. What's the quarterback coach's name? Don't know. What offense do they run? Don't know. But that's where I want to go. And do you think they'll pay me X? So that's all these kids care about. They only care about that.
All right. We can wrap up 2 questions real quick. Number 1, Scatabo, the awesome running back from ASU. I know you have coaches and players that you rep in the NFL. I'm just curious if you have any kind of gauge on where you think he fits as a draft pick. Are we talking like a 3rd rounder? I know he hasn't run a 40 or whatever, but man, as a football player, you want that dude on your team.
Yeah, as a football player, to me, I want him on my team. I mean, what I love about him is even now he plays special teams. Even now at ASU, he's running down on kick return, kickoff. He plays special teams. I think you put him in the NFL, I think, he'll do anything, whether it's, punt, kickoff, punt return, kick return. He'll be a core 8 special teams guy for you. He wants to play. But I don't know. I mean, is he a Danny Woodhead type? Like, I think so.
He went like 6th round, did he? Or was he undrafted?
Something like that. But I mean, but I think he's better. But I also know in the NFL, they care so much about beauty pageant. They care so much about these numbers. So ultimately, is Cam Scatterbo talent-wise and football player-wise, is he worth a top 60, a top 70 pick? I think football player-wise, but I think when the actual draft happens, I think he's a guy that's probably going to go late in the draft.
Yeah, I think there's huge value in that guy late in the draft. And finally, I don't know how much you pay attention to these gambling lines, but we have ASU has a bye, but we have the hypothetical lines for who they would meet in the quarterfinal. And Clemson would be a 5.5 point favorite over Arizona State, and then Texas would be a 13.5 point favorite over ASU. I'm curious as to your thoughts on those lines.
I mean, interesting, I guess.
Yeah, the Clemson one surprised me. That's a stunner. I don't think they're very good at all.
Yeah, I don't, I'm not a huge fan of Clemson right now. I think they're just average
Yeah.
at best. I don't trust them offensively. Texas, different team. But I mean, look, I literally do TV shows and radio shows all the time, and I have been wrong about ASU every week, like every week. So I don't know. I mean, I just think this team right now is on a special ride. They're playing great. The coaches game planning every week. Scheme is, I mean, they're just, everything is clicking for them. I hate the fact that Jordan Tyson's hurt and not able to play for them because he was special this year at the wide receiver spot. But my viewpoint honestly is I don't care what, and I know they got to buy, so they're, I guess, respected now. But if I was any team in the college football playoff, I would hate to play ASU.
Why is that?
I When you watch them, the ball bounces their way almost every time. Situations bounce their way every time. They get calls all the time. I mean, so many things for ASU have just gone their way this year. And sometimes it's just like that. And it's really hard to beat teams that are like that. I mean, they lost game this year to Cincinnati, I believe it was. They would have never lost that game if they had Sam Leavitt playing. He's their starting quarterback. He didn't play that game. That was the difference in the game, like without a doubt. ASU has won this many games this year, literally without a kicking game. They can't make a field goal to save their life, and they're still winning games like this. It's pretty incredible to me.
Well, I've never been, I didn't play college football. Shocker. You were a 3-year starter at ASU, actually 3.5 maybe. But how do you think, what's the game plan for Dillingham these next 2 weeks being off? How do you put together an entire game plan for Clemson and one for Texas or not? Because that's a waste of time. Or do you just work on your stuff? How do you think Dillingham handles this?
Well, they got to do a couple things. First and foremost, they got to recruit. They got to manage they got to recruit. Right. They got to manage the transfer portal. They got to figure out some of their NIL spend to prevent guys from going in the portal. Then once you do all of that, you're going to spend as much time as you can on getting your guys healthy, getting them rest, getting them healthy, getting their legs fresh, just getting them healthy. And then I think what you do is you're going to spend at least a week, at least 3 or 4 practices on just fundamentals, ball handling and fundamentals on offense, ball handling, fundamentals, technique, fundamentals, technique, and situations. And I think on the defensive side, you're going to do the same. And I think they're probably going to go back the last few weeks and do some self-scout and try to find some corrections, either offensively or defensively. They want to make, some adjustments to pass protections or adjustments to route concepts or run game schemes or whatever. And I don't think they're probably going to get into any planning until they know, who they're going to play. And then they'll get into the heavy game planning then. But a lot of it is just get healthy. And then, if it was me, just a ton of work on correcting and self-scout.
Yeah. And Clemson seems like a long shot to be Texas. I think Texas very, very strong. But ASU, I just love the moxie and the never quit and the coach and the running guy. So much to like about this team. Rudy Carpenter, thanks so much for taking the time. Continued success in your endurance sports management and, good luck to your Sun Devils in the playoff.
All right. Thanks for having me.